Framed, Part 12. 10th of May. Cars today, minibus, Gwynedd Education Committee, weather, damp, note, Leicester's not his real name. This minibus is the one that comes every morning to collect Marie and take her to Blaenau High School. It's actually quite beastie for a minibus. Mountain Rescue used to use it, so it has snow chains and bull bars and four-wheel drive and exhaust that sounded like a helicopter. It stopped at the garage because Miss Sanders had got away, sort of. Leicester was going to let her take a school party up to the quarry, but it had to be on a Saturday because the men were doing essential maintenance in the week. I mean, who is going to turn up on a Saturday? When it pulled up to the forecourt, it turned out that the answer to the question was everyone. The whole school was on this bus, except me and Minnie. Then Minnie got on. I said, "What about Mam? She'll be on her own." Marie had gone to Blaenau. Minnie said, "Con we car boot madness." So we got on the minibus. Mam hadn't had time to make our breakfast, or sandwiches, and we'd sold all the pot noodle, so we had to make do with a couple of Mars bars each from the sweet rack in the shop. One good thing about being the only boy in school is that no one wants to sit with you, so I could eat my chocolate in peace. Though I did notice terrible Evans glaring at me over the back of the seat, like she could smell the chocolate. The minibus couldn't take all the corners of the mountain road. Twice we had to get out while the driver edged it around a big boulder. Then we pulled out of the clouds and the others were so amazed by the sunshine that they all clapped. Except Terrible Evans, obviously. Leicester met us at the top. You could tell he didn't really want us down his quarry. First thing he said was, "It's such a beautiful day. It seems a shame to take them underground when they're surrounded by such natural beauty." I said, "Yeah," thinking I might still get a game out of this. Miss Stannard said, "It's not a shame at all. Lead the way, Leicester." We all followed him through the quarry entrance. There was a warm breeze and a little railway track, just like last time. He explained that the track was once used by wagons bringing slate to the surface. Now specially adapted trailers carried the paintings down to the secure chamber. He showed them one of the trailers. "You can pull it back and forth if you like, see how it works." "Can we ride on it?" said J. Porty. "No." "And the paintings?" said Miss Stannard. "Where are they?" "In the secure chamber, directly below us. I'm afraid we're not covered for people going down there without hard hats, as we don't have any hard hats. "Nonsense," said Miss Stannard. "The quarry's been closed for 40 years. Anything that was going to fall down would have fallen down long since. You worry too much, Leicester." And she took herself off down the track. Everyone followed her, even Leicester. The track led down and down. It kept doubling back on itself like the big flume at Plasma Dock. You could feel yourself getting deeper and deeper. It was funny to think that we were almost down the mountain, but on the inside. I couldn't concentrate on the feeling though, because Terrible Evans kept coming up behind me and trying to get a hand in my pocket. Suddenly, we came round one last corner, and instead of one more tunnel, there was a room. I don't mean a room like a bedroom. This was like the inside the biggest room you've ever been in, which in my case is the National Exhibition Centre in Birmingham, the time we went to the motor show. It was that big. It was lit by these great big floodlights on stands, and it was full of hundreds and hundreds of rows and rows of wooden boxes. Hundreds of them, hundreds and hundreds, leaning against these big metal shelves. "There it is," said Leicester. "The entire National Gallery collection." He looked over and gave me a little smile when he said that. Then he strolled down to the rows of boxes and pointed to the first one. "Early medieval altarpieces and so on, up as far as Giotto." He moved to the next row. "Early Renaissance Italian and the North European school, Bosch, Bruegel and so on. Please feel free to look." "Feast your eyes, children," said Miss Stannard. "Some of the highest achievements of civilization are here before us, under our mountain. Imagine that." Some of the girls followed her down the first row. It was just boxes. A lot of boxes, but just boxes. Leicester was on another row now. "High Renaissance Italian up as far as Raphael." Miss Stannard stopped him. "Am I right in thinking," she said, "that they're all boxed?" "Yes. Oh yes, of course. These are valuable works of art. We have to take extreme care. We check the humidity, the temperature, the dust content." "Yes, but can we look at any of the paintings?" "Oh no, my word, no. Do you mean take them out of the boxes?" No. He made it sound like they might run away. "Well, I hope that's given you some sense of what we're about here. Perhaps you'd like to follow me back up." Miss Stannard wasn't going to budge though. "Children, take a look at the ceiling," she said. We all looked up. It was steep and pointy. like a massive rock tent or the roof of a house, and it was covered in marks and was shiny wet. And while I was looking at it, Terrible Evans gave me a rabbit punch in the kidneys. I doubled over and she took my other Mars bar. "This is not a natural cave," said Miss Stannard. "It was cut from the living rock by your grandfathers and their fathers before them. They used their bare hands, chisel and hammers, and a bit later, small explosive charges. It took the best part of 100 years to carve out. Look, it's like a secret cathedral, and strangely enough, it's called a gallery. And now this one is filled with art, so it's an art gallery." I was trying not to notice, but Terrible was now chewing my Mars bar behind my back, right next to my ear. "You might say," said Miss Stannard, "that this is their work of art." No, said Lester. "It's very impressive, but it's a work of engineering, excavation, whatever, not art." "Well, you say that, Lester," said Miss Stannard, "but who are you to say? You think these wooden boxes are works of art?" "No, they contain works of art, great works of art, the greatest actually." Miss Stannard kept on at him. "How can something be a work of art if no one can see it? It's only a work of art when someone's looking at it. At least we're looking at the ceiling." And just as she said that, Terrible thumped me in the kidneys again. I'd had enough. I turned on her. She grinned and ran back off up the tunnel. I went after her. I chased her up the steep passageway. I could hear her footsteps ahead of me and boomy voices of Lester and Miss Stannard arguing behind me. Suddenly the footsteps ahead stopped. I started running quicker, thinking I'd get her now. Then I stopped. There was a scream. A terrible scream, blasting past me down the tunnel. They must have heard it in the big cave, because the boomy voices stopped, and the next thing I heard was 100 footsteps hurrying up the tunnel. The scream came again, and before I had time to think, I was running towards it. I got to the top. It was coming from that little room off the main entrance, the one where we looked at the picture of the Madonna. I pushed the door open, and Terrible turned to face me. "Sorry," she gasped. She could barely catch her breath. "Sorry, I thought it was real." She was pointing to the corner where the Madonna had been, and I nearly screamed too. There was another picture of a different woman, an ugly woman, but when I say ugly, I don't mean not nice looking. I mean, her face should have been certificate 18. She had great big nostrils pointing out at you like a pair of truck exhausts, and as for eyes, well, I've seen bigger on a potato. Her skin was all wrinkly, like an old balloon, especially her neck, which was like a turkey. Her clothes were old-fashioned, like from history. She had this random thing on her head. I suppose it was a hat, but it looked more like a half-couch. The worst thing was, she was coming out of her dress at the top. If the painter had painted her a minute later, well, you wouldn't want to think about that. The others had caught up with me by now. They were crowding in through the door. Minnie came over and stood next to me. "It isn't real, is it?" said Terrible. "Is it a photograph? Or what?" "It's a painting," said Minnie. And then she said very, very quietly to me, "And it's not by Michelangelo." I whispered, "Thanks." Lester had come in now. "If you could just step back a little, please." He was obviously worried that someone might breathe on his painting. "Step back, please, everyone." "I'm sorry you've been distressed," he went on, "but do feel free to leave. As I said, I'm only too happy to have the paintings to myself." But Terrible was trying to bring her heartbeat down. "That's a painting. Why would anyone want to paint that? Why?" "What a good question," said Miss Stannard. "Lester, what's the answer?" She was talking to him now like he was in year 6, and the best thing was, he replied. "Well," he said, and he really should have kept his mouth shut. "There are several schools of thought on the matter. Some see it as a simple comic grotesquerie, some as satirical comment on the foolishness of all women who dress in a way that's inappropriate to their years." He was staring at Miss Stannard when he said this. She glared back at him. "Shouldn't be allowed," said J. Porter. "I imagine that's what the artist is trying to say," said Lester. "No, I mean the picture shouldn't be allowed," said Jade. "It's upsetting, very upsetting. It upsets me completely. If I looked like that, I'd hide myself. Not go getting my portrait painted and shoving it in other people's faces. There is no need for that, no need at all. It's not necessary. That isn't. No wonder you're putting it down on mine. Are they all like that?" I'd never seen anyone so revved up, and all the time she was saying this stuff, the girls behind her were nodding their heads and agreeing with her. It's interesting. Dylan and I were just talking about that the other day, about Michelangelo. When he said that, everyone looked at me. They looked at me funny. Like he'd said, "The other day, Dylan and I fell down a sewer and we were turned into ninjas by a talking rat." Lester kept going. We were saying that art is about beauty, and of course, until Michelangelo in the Middle Ages, for instance, artists mostly saw beauty as temptation to sin. Michelangelo was almost the first to celebrate human beauty for its own sake, and yet here we have someone doing just the opposite, looking at ugliness. It's quite radical. I said dude. I couldn't help myself. You hear the word radical, and you say dude. It's normal behaviour. Unfortunately, it also reminded him that I was there. Dylan, he said, step forward and take a closer look. Tell us what you think. I walked over to the picture just to try and kill time. It was about life size in a neat wooden frame, so it was like looking in a mirror. I wondered if the woman in the picture ever looked in the mirror. Maybe they didn't have them then. Maybe she didn't even know what she looked like till she saw the painting. I said to myself, Dylan, there's only 4 things you know about painting. The names of 4 painters. It's not Michelangelo, because Minnie said so. Donatello does machines, which this isn't. Raphael is cool, which this definitely isn't. So that leaves Leonardo. So that's what I said. I said, Leonardo? I could hear Minnie sucking her teeth. I could feel everyone else holding their breath, waiting to see if I'd said the wrong thing or not. Lester said, remarkable. And everyone started breathing again, including me. Lester was saying, of course, it's not actually by Leonardo. In fact, it's Dutch, but the influence is clearly there in the brushwork, of course. And also in the subject matter. The picture bears an uncanny resemblance to a sketch in one of Leonardo's notebooks. Leonardo, as you know, was fascinated by ugly faces as fascinated by ugly faces as he was by beautiful ones. He made hundreds of drawings of them, whether from life or from his imagination, we don't know. But he never made one of the main subject of a painting as this man did. His name is Masses, by the way, Quentin Masses, my namesake. I thought your name was Lester, said Miss Stannard. Actually, Lester is my surname. My first name is Quentin. Oh, said Miss Stannard, I see. And then we started to talk about how amazing and unexpected it was that this Dutch painter had worked so closely with Leonardo all those years ago. But none of us were listening. We were all standing there thinking, Quentin? He said, it's as though Masses is saying, yes, there's beauty in humanity, but not everyone is beautiful. There's ugliness too. You've either got it, said Jay Porty, or you haven't. She definitely thinks she has, which shows how much she knows. Lester said, well, I hope you've all found this entertaining and educational. I wish you all a safe journey down the mountain. Everyone started to go, but Terrible waited for a bit. Then she said, you're wrong about that picture, mister. Am I really? Said Lester. You painted it so everyone would feel good. You're just not thinking about it right. Aren't I indeed? He's painted someone ugly so that anyone looking at it would think it's not so bad after all. When you first see it, it's horrible. But if you just keep looking, it makes you feel great. I feel like $1 million now. Lester opened his mouth, but he said nothing. You could see she'd given him something to think about. When we got outside, Terrible was sitting on a rock, eating my Mars bar, and the funny thing was, she did look good. Not $1 million, but maybe $500,000, or even 3/4. The picture had been mutagenish again. It changed her just like the shop windows had been changed. She caught me looking at her, smiled, and threw the rest of the Mars bar at me. Back on the bus, Miss Stannard came by and sat by me. What's the point of being the only boy in school if you don't get a seat to yourself? She said, Dylan, I believe you've been hiding your light under a bushel. I believe you're a lot cleverer than you let on. Leonardo, who would have thought? Even though I knew it was another misunderstanding, I did start looking out of the window, wondering if it could be true. If you could get cleverer. Like the turtles were not clever when they were just turtles, were they? They were amphibians. But then Splinter came along, and they learned to be good with machines and got a sewer sledge and everything. Maybe sometimes a person can turn into something else. A caterpillar doesn't know it's going to be a butterfly. A tadpole doesn't know it's going to be a frog. And when those pet turtles were flushed down the toilet, they didn't know they were going to turn out to be ninja heroes, or even mutants.